Hey, this is Liz from People I Think Are Cool, a bi-weekly podcast where I interview my favorite creatives from across the globe. If you're looking for a dose of creative inspiration, then go to peopleithinkarecool.com or subscribe to People I Think Are Cool on iTunes and Stitcher.
You like film, from cult to classic, from blockbuster to B-movies. And there just isn't that one place with all the fan fervor and passion that's covering the kind of mad, diverse brilliance that you love.
Well, that's where you're wrong.
AfterMovieDiner.com is that fan-built movie nirvana just for you, featuring the sweet, sweet writings of the wife dork herself. AfterMovieDiner.com. Go there. Be the best you can be.
You are listening to the In the Mouth of Dorkness podcast, the official podcast of the Alamo Drafthouse Winchester.
Welcome to another edition of the It Modcast podcast. Joining me is Brian Young, the Turtle Dork.
Happy Friday, folks.
Yep. And also joining me is Lisa Gullickson, wife dork.
Hello.
Yay. And Brad Gullickson, mouth dork.
Hello!
And I'm your host, Darren Smith, the Disco Dork, and welcome to another edition of the It Modcast podcast, Fistful Friday.
Not just any fistful, but the fistful of summer.
Yay! Because it is over?
It's over.
No.
Did it even start, guys? That's my question. Did it even start?
It went by fast.
I don't think it did.
I don't think it did
It
either.
went by
I don't
fast.
think it did.
Why?
I think that
Summer was
Marvel
weak.
has consumed summer,
Into
Yeah.
April.
like where it's just like people don't even want to put out movies anymore.
Yeah.
This has been a weird year. It's been a weird year.
Literally, all of the studios are like, I'm just gonna take my ball and go home.
I mean,
Yeah.
they made some movies. Studios still put out lots of
We
movies.
saw films.
And Disney put out some movies this summer, and some were good and some were mediocre.
Oh.
Lion King. But, you
Wow.
I didn't even
Wow.
see it.
Still?
Still haven't seen it.
So how can you do a fistful of summer?
All right,
this
you're
would
right.
be your number
You guys
two.
have a good one. Bye.
know, all right,
right.
go see Lion King.
All right. Brian.
Ooh, See Lion King, the sequel.
Oh, I
With a
like
sea
Sea
it.
lion.
I like it.
I get it. All
like it.
right. Yeah.
I refuse to go.
But can't you just see a sea lion holding up a little baby sea lion? I know that I think all of the animals
what
should
are
be
the-
sea lions.
And then a
in
killer
Sea
whale
Lion King.
jumps up and eats it out of his hand. Real quick.
Oh, the
man.
water
The
is so cruel.
The circle of life goes into the ocean too.
Circle of Life.
Brian.
Didn't even have his tusks.
So sad. I would watch that. Directed by Werner Herzog.
Oh, hell
Brian,
yeah.
your number 5 in your Fistful of Summer. Are we building up to Hobbs and Shaw as your number 1?
No.
Number
And
two?
it's so crazy how we were like so into that leading up to Oh my
You
God.
guys liked it?
No, I did.
You
I
guys
did.
liked
I liked
How many
it.
stars did I give it?
I don't
3?
know.
2? What?
Oh.
Brian, go. Number 5.
Anyway, so like Brad was mentioning, I don't know if you said this on the podcast or when we weren't recording, but our lists are a little different and a little bit weird, and I don't know how to wrap my head around some of the. I don't want to say wrap my head around, but my first pick is a direct-to-DVD or video.
Damn.
Oh,
Blu-ray.
VOD?
VOD,
Nice. I
maybe?
approve of this. I
Yeah,
approve of
came
this.
out May 14th. It is Batman versus Teenage Mutant Ninja
Oh,
Turtles.
Yeah.
So I'm going off my letterbox and I'm just picking the top 5 that came out within the parameters that we set, and
Yeah.
this was the number 5th.
Oh, tell the listeners what the time frame is.
May 1st to basically the end of August.
Yeah.
To this weekend.
So
Or
if you're
last
like,
weekend.
how come Avengers Endgame didn't appear on anyone's list?
Came out in April, son.
Yeah,
didn't make
yeah.
the cut.
That's
so.
spring.
Same with Hellboy. It's not going to be on it because it came out in April.
Don't
Sorry,
worry,
guys.
You'll talk about it at the end of the year.
Goddamn right we will.
But I thoroughly enjoyed this movie, and I'm always a little skeptical with the Ninja Turtles movie because I just never know, because it just seems like filmmakers and producers never know how to handle these characters.
You just love them too hard.
I
You
do.
don't want to see them mishandled.
And
You're right, Lisa.
DC has been cranking out the cartoon films,
They have been.
and they're not as great as they once were.
No, I think they're getting. Well, I can't say that because I haven't really seen them. Because recently they just released Batman Hush.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Oh, you saw it?
Yeah, it's not bad.
Okay. So yeah, but I thoroughly had a good time with this particular movie. I love the portrayal of the turtles. I love how they interact or bring them into the Batman universe. I even like the story of what they're doing with the Shredder and Ra's al Ghul and all the different characters and how they integrate the rogues gallery of Batman's villains into this story. It was just a lot of fun, and it was a pleasant surprise. And I remember seeing it and then texting you, Brad, about it. I was like, "Oh, did you see it yet?" I was like, "Yeah, I think you might dig this." And luckily you did.
I kept putting it off though, because I'm like, well, Brian's in the bag for all things TMNT.
Yeah,
But Brian's not wrong. This movie is a lot of fun.
It is.
A lot of fun.
Well,
and well done. Well
yes.
I was gonna say, I'm an animation snob. So how's the animation?
The animation is, I mean, it's what you expect from like some of these animated DC movies. So you're going to get that style. But the thing that really took me back was the way they choreograph a lot of and animate the action sequences.
Was it fluid?
It's very fluid, and it just felt different from anything that I saw with this particular style of animation.
Who directed that? Is it the guy who?
J. Olivia?
Yeah,
I don't
'cause he
think it
directed
is.
a lot of
Somebody named
DCs.
Jake Castorina.
Oh, okay.
Castorina.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, style.
Jake Casarina. Aye.
That's so dumb.
Great.
You gotta support your wife.
No, the animation is solid. Some of the designs I don't love. I don't love Batman's design in particular.
Okay.
But I mean, I don't care because the movie is so much fun, and
Yeah.
it feels in tone with the Turtles, and it feels
Yeah.
in tone with Batman and the other characters.
Was it Kevin Conroy voicing him, or
No,
the
it's
guy
it's
who?
the new guy they've got voicing him. I'm blanking on his name.
Wait, I got it up here. Batman. Where are you, Batman? Troy Baker.
Troy Baker.
Troy Baker,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so he
Okay.
does Batman and the Joker.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Kevin Conroy still comes in. Did he do the one for Hush or no?
No. I think that was somebody else as well.
Because he does do some of the animated movies.
He does,
Still comes in.
but it's been a while.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this movie, and for anybody who is a Batman fan or a TMNT fan, I highly suggest them go and check this one out. You won't be disappointed. It's a lot of fun.
All right.
Jason O'Mara did the voice of Batman in
Yeah.
Batman Hush.
Okay. Wife Dork number 5.
My number 5 is on this list because it was a film that I wasn't particularly looking forward to. I'm like, is this really needed? I feel like the story for me is complete. But then the film blew me away, and it is Toy Story 4.
Yay.
I was fully in the bag with they faced death. They were being ready to be melted to just raw plastic.
Well, when you put it like that, god damn.
And, like, what else could happen to these toys?
Yeah.
But the way that they furthered Woody's story to where he could look at his life and go like, my job being a toy to one child is done. The world has moved on from me. And so instead of vying for attention and giving myself selflessly to something that is never going to appreciate me, I'm going to follow my bliss, and I'm going to try to bring myself joy while bringing as many children joy as possible. I thought that might be a message that might be confusing to a child, but it really spoke to me as a person who was in a career, teaching, finding it, in ways creatively fulfilling, but feeling underappreciated and overworked and overlooked. And for me to go like, I could keep giving myself to this and giving my time and my beauty and my youth away to this thing that isn't completing me, or I can do my own thing.
Yeah. I was right there with you, as somebody in a transitional period in their life, seeing Woody transition from what he was to this new thing and chasing a form of heroism that's unique than what he had experienced as the toy in the room. I loved Toy Story 4,
Mm-hmm.
and it narrowly missed my top 5.
To me, like, if you find yourself in a place where you're struggling to stay where you are, that's just life telling you to progress. And Toy Story 4 taught me that.
Yeah, so good.
So good.
Better than 3. Boom.
Yeah, best one.
I agree.
Yeah,
That's
I
one.
liked it. I liked it a lot more than 3. Not a lot more. I like 3, but this one just really, like Lisa, it spoke to her. It spoke to me.
Yeah, it spoke to me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Pixar, they just continue to do astonishing work when it comes to using CGI to progress their art.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
crazy, like some of the stuff they go on. But
You
know,
look at Toy Story 1 and it's scary.
Yeah.
It is uncanny.
but at the same time, I did not respond as well to The Incredibles 2 or Finding Dory. And I felt like that was going to be the case with this sequel. And no, I mean, I think this is one of their better movies of the ride.
It's all
batch.
about script.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it is impeccably composed.
Yeah.
Even, like...
And performed.
The fact that every character, more or less, has an arc within themselves. I mean, that's just... You think about Keanu Reeves.
Even Combat Carl.
Yeah.
You got to stay to the
I
end of the
know.
credits, Brian.
I
Combat
know.
Carl's arc gets its completion.
It's like, damn, man. When you told me that, I was like, really? It's like, shit, man.
That's the most satisfying tag of the year.
So good. And it was like me and Brad and one other dude.
Yeah.
It was so beautiful.
All right. It's your number 5.
This is my number
Brad?
5.
It's gonna be
Come on.
Ooh, he's
Sober
gonna
up,
guess.
sober up. Of the summer?
Is Spider-Man?
Yes. It
Really?
is Spider-Man Far
Yay!
From Home.
Mine
10
too.
points.
Yeah.
Yay!
Yeah.
Can I get a Tango and Cash?
Yeah,
high five?
Tango Cash. Oh,
Yay!
yay! Cross fingers. Like if you go back and you listen to our review cast, I certainly had some issues with how they incorporated Spider-Man into the universe of Nick Fury's Shield. And I don't want to go into spoilers on the top 5 because I'm sure there's still some people who have not seen the film yet. But the way that they handled, I am going to spoil Avengers Endgame. So I think everybody on the planet has seen it by this point, but Tony Stark, he dead. All right. And the way that his death is felt in Spider-Man Far From Home, I think is really well done. And I love seeing Peter Parker come to terms with that loss and struggle with what it means to be a superhero in a world that desperately hungers for a new Iron Man or to fill that large void. And I also loved how his loss, Tony Stark's loss, is felt in Happy Hogan as a character, and how it brings Happy Hogan and Peter Parker together by the end of that film. I think is really, really beautiful, and it's what Marvel comic book cinema can do that nobody else is doing.
Yeah.
Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio. I've always wanted to see this character represented properly on screen, and they do a very unique spin on that character, but the way they get to there, when we finally get a full-on Mysterio sequence, it is truly beautiful and my favorite action scene of the year. And I love all the high school, romance stuff between Peter and MJ. I think that Zendaya and Tom Holland have a really great relationship. I love the comedy of this film. I loved the stuff with the blip. I love the stuff with Ned and Betty. I really like these kids and I really like these performers. And this is the Spider-Man that I've wanted. That mix of insecurities and confidence and bumbling and all that stuff. And even though it doesn't directly reference Uncle Ben every 5 seconds or whatever, and I know that's a problem for some, but I feel like it is maintaining the shame that is the spark of the character. That failing that Peter Parker had when he first got these powers and how he's desperately trying to live up to his uncle's mantra with great power and great responsibility. And the best Spider-Man stories are the ones that never let go of that idea, this balance of power and responsibility. And I think Far From Home does a better job of challenging that than even Homecoming did. I like I said, like mechanics wise, why Spider-Man is being asked to help Mysterio and Nick Fury find lava monsters and dust monsters does not make sense to me. But I really don't care at the end of the day when all's revealed to be what it is. Does it all still work? No. But I like the ride. I like these characters. I had a good time. Marvel and Sony have now split.
Yeah.
Sad.
News out of D23. We're still going to get Tom Holland Spider-Man movies, but they're just not going to have the input of Kevin Feige and his team.
Well, they're still negotiating from what I'm hearing.
Sure.
Even though they did give a statement.
Sure.
You know.
And I hope they come to terms. And, there's a lot of money to be made.
Yeah.
And certainly creatively, I think it would be a mistake not to be able to continue where they were going with that story. But, Sony's also made a really an amazing Spider-Man animated film. And if you can talk to some of those guys who worked on that film to work on your movie, it's possible.
Lord Miller.
I don't want Spider-Man hanging out with Tom Hardy's Venom or Woody Harrelson's Carnage. We'll see what happens with Andy Serkis's movie. But assuming things don't mend, I think that this is as good enough an ending for that character in my MCU mind as possible. He's on the run, and good luck in the Sony universe dealing with that.
Yeah.
But so number 5, Spider-Man Far From Home.
Same. My number 5 is also Spider-Man Far From Home. Just about every reason that you mentioned. It is unfortunate that Sony and Marvel could not come to terms. But at the very least, we will still have Tom Holland as Peter Parker because, I'm happy about that because he is my favorite iteration of the character. He's really, really good. He brings so much to that role, to that character. And we've had multiple interpretations of that character by Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. But I feel like there is just something inherent in Tom that I gravitate towards more, and I appreciate more that those other actors did, and they did great. They did fine. I don't really think too much back on Tobey Maguire's take on the character, or to be honest, Andrew Garfield's. But when I was watching those movies, I was entertained by them, and I enjoyed their performances just fine. But something about Tom Holland and just his youthfulness, I think, comes across more honest as opposed to a 21-year-old or 23-year-old playing like
40-year-old
playing a teenager, right? There's just something, and a lot of that has to do with putting Tom as Peter against, not against, but with around much older adults like Tony Stark and the Avengers, and putting him in situations that dwarf his experience and make him feel like I'm just a kid in this extra normal circumstance. And so I felt like that went a long way to kind of ground him in his youthfulness, so that when he is off on his own as Spider-Man, as Peter, I'm really buying into that juggling of the power, responsibility, but also not only how do I superhero, but how do I teenage? Like, how do I student? How do I date? How do I, deal with my puberty or whatever?
Yeah, am I not allowed to be Peter?
Peter, right.
Can I be Peter and be Spider-Man?
And I don't know that I would have necessarily guessed that I would have found that as compelling about that character as I do in a live action. Because, initially the idea of seeing a Spider-Man in the film, to me, I'm thinking about the action and the web slinging and the wall crawling and him physically fighting the rogues gallery. But to me, the most compelling stuff is Peter and what he's dealing with, and him, those moments when he's on the roof on the edge of that building thinking about Tony and his loss and his place in the world now, and what does he do with that, and how does he move forward. And so hopefully Sony takes what Marvel started and built with that character, and they move forward in equally progressive way.
Because the only thing that I find weird is, like, how is he not going to bring up occasionally, like, I used to be an
An
Avenger.
Avenger.
Like, how
Yeah.
could that never come up?
Yeah.
They're just going to be like, well, I feel lacking of a father figure since who died.
Who, Uncle Ben? No, the other you know who. I don't know. Maybe they do like the Into the Spider-Verse thing and alternate dimensions, and Tony gets Peter gets sent to like another universe where he didn't
Or
join
they
the
just
Avengers
kill
or
him
something.
and replace him with
Jesus,
Miles
no.
Morales.
I think they're going to work a deal out, at least for a couple more movies to probably just wrap up that story and then send them off. But I got a feeling they'll make a deal.
But like Brad said, like if that doesn't happen,
Yeah.
I'm more than satisfied with how Marvel has handled that character.
That moment at the end of Far From Home, and so this isn't necessarily a narrative spoiler, listeners, but it's a character spoiler, I guess. When Peter is making a spider suit in the jet, that
yeah.
the Stark Industries plane, and Happy flicks on the switch with AC/DC Back in Black playing, and him going, "Oh, I love Iron Maiden." That right there is why comic books, and comic book style storytelling, you have this massive universe, and you've been telling 20 plus movies of story, and it pays off in the best 3 seconds ever with that. Like, oh, I love Iron Maiden.
Yeah.
You don't get that anywhere else.
No, you don't.
All right, be your number 4.
So my number 4.
Hobbs and Shaw.
No, man.
You said it wasn't your number 1 or 2. It's number 3.
If you love that, don't project your love of that movie onto me.
I just wanted someone else to have it on their list like me.
Okay.
There's lots to like about Hobbs and Shaw.
There is. Just
Well,
not
there he goes.
top 5
He's on the floor
material.
again. He's hiding.
No, my number 4 is The Farewell.
Oh, yay!
Great movie.
Farewell was another movie that really surprised me. I don't want to say surprised, but it was a movie that was definitely on my radar, and a smaller movie, and a movie that's filled with these bombastic, large, action, epic movies. This is a character-driven piece about a family that is keeping the illness or the sickness of their grandmother, the diagnosis of their grandmother, a secret, because in Eastern culture they believe that to not tell the person who is diagnosed with that illness, because if they learn of their diagnosis, then they will
Succumb to that
condition or that disease. So the family decides to keep this a secret, and I just like following this journey with Awkwafina, with somebody who has this family who is of Eastern culture, but growing up in a Western civilization, and her dealing with the moral and ethical situations of how she has to navigate her own feelings of dealing with this in her family. And even just from me watching the film, it also makes me think about, okay, being part of a Western civilization, is this something that we could do? Is this something that is ethical for us to do? Like, so it raises a lot of questions.
Questions that you didn't know that you had.
Yeah,
Because if you were just on the face gonna walk up to me and go like, so should doctors tell the patients directly their diagnosis, or should they tell a family member? I'd be like, of course, you should tell the person directly. People should be fully informed so that they can make decisions for themselves.
But then when you say, but no, I'm asking
then
you
you
because...
But then you watch this film, and this film goes like, well, this aged person is part of a family, and their diagnosis affects the whole family. I don't know. It's
profound.
Thought provoking.
It's very thought provoking.
I did air quotes, by
and
the
I
way.
like I like what I don't know if it was either Awkwafina's father or her uncle who her uncle she was having a conversation with, and he even says it. He was like, your life is not just your own; it's part of a family, and it's part of a whole. And because she's struggling whether it's the right thing for them to keep this secret from her, and her uncle was telling her, it's like, we have to carry the grief and the burden of this and not put this onto her, and that makes a lot of sense, because a lot of times, are you going to tell somebody if they're diagnosed with cancer, even though it is their right to know, but are you telling that to relieve yourself of your own grief that you're feeling? So it does also ask, like, is it selfish for you to tell somebody, even though you feel like that's the right thing? So it's very interesting, just the dynamics of all that stuff. I just found it really, really fascinating. And a movie I still think about to this day, and definitely one of the best of the summer. I love that movie.
All right, Wife Dork, your
Yes.
number cuatro.
My number 4 was a direct-to-Netflix film, and it is extremely wicked, shockingly evil, and vile.
That was this year.
Yeah.
That was this summer.
Huh.
Yeah.
Gonna brag. Brad and I got to see it at Sundance.
I was going to say, y'all saw it at the fest, right?
Yes, but what I really appreciated about this film is that it took the story of Ted Bundy and not made it about him. That it wasn't an exploration of, ooh, let's get into the mind of this disgusting person. What would turn someone into a villain and a murderer? Instead, this film is about Lily Collins' character, Liz Kendall, and it asks the question like, how do you judge a character? Do you judge based on what they're telling you? Like, and it's also the psychology of like how
does that person live after knowing that the other person they've been partnered with for so much time is a monster?
Right. Or you think about his girlfriend in jail, Carol. Like, how does somebody end up being Carol and becoming impregnated with his baby while he is in prison?
There's a whole other movie there. Like, this film does not necessarily explore why she makes the choices that she does make. And I would like to follow Carol's story.
The fact is, Ted Bundy moved through the world in a way that allowed him to murder a bunch of people. And yeah, you do wonder, like, what makes a man do that? But it makes me wonder, like, what are we letting people get away with because we're not asking questions and we're not looking closely enough, and maybe somebody's just pulling the wool over our eyes. I thought that the young man
Zac Efron,
the
young man Zac Efron
made a super compelling Ted Bundy,
so good.
especially when you put like the interview sequences with the actual Ted Bundy next to Zac Efron. Like, they don't look alike, but the way that people describe Ted Bundy and the effect that he had on the population of, oh, he was so handsome, he was so charming, he had such charisma.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like Zac Efron is a good way to capture that kind of mystique.
Yeah, for sure. Agreed.
Of like, he's a good-looking guy, he has charisma. What is he capable of? We don't even know.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I thought that was excellent casting, even if he was a little young. Was that one of the arguments that people were making?
I don't know.
Who is Zac Efron?
Yeah.
Oh.
I thought Lily Collins was amazing. I thought it was...
I liked I See Dead People.
Yeah.
Haley Joel Osment.
He's in it?
Yeah, he's in
He
it.
plays Lily Collins'
Coworker.
co-worker
Boyfriend.
after Ted Bundy.
Yeah,
What did I just see him in?
The Boys.
Okay, yeah.
He's popping up.
Yeah. He's
He's
in
popping
Yoga
up.
Hosers.
Yeah, I thought it was a really compelling portrait of a serial killer in a new way. And the fact that they don't show any violence
Until the
until
end.
they do.
Yeah, when they have the reveal, I guess, when she goes to jail to visit.
Yeah, what you do with her head.
Yeah.
Gross.
Ugh, so
Oh.
gross.
Did you saw it, right?
Mm-mm.
Oh,
I think
spoilers. He
it's-
killed a lot of people. Ted Bundy
I
turns out a
think
real bad guy.
it's a very compelling movie.
It is.
Yeah,
Mm,
that's
it
a good
is.
pick, Lisa.
Yeah,
thanks.
it made me go rewatch the Netflix docuseries that's on there about Ted
Not
Bundy.
as interesting.
But directed by the same guy.
Yeah.
The guy who did that docuseries also directed
wow.
the movie as well.
Yeah.
But I found that to be a little fascinating. I mean, of course, I watched it after I saw the movie, so just to kind of see all those different aspects from the film, like when he jumped out the.
Yeah, I think it's if you don't know any of that stuff, it's pretty interesting.
Okay.
But I felt like in going in with a narrative approach, it was just a new angle on that story.
Okay.
Brad was a
Obsessed.
murderino, a true crime kiddo before it was cool.
Yeah, that's true.
He was a true crime kiddo
I read
when it
all
was
those stuff.
weird.
I read
and
Ann Rule's
gross.
book, the book, The Stranger Beside You, and Ann Rule's briefly in the movie. I was like obsessed with that book in high school, middle school, something like that.
All right.
The fact that he got away with that. See, he's so lucky he was pre-Columbine because he would have been should we cut that?
No,
He would have been. He would have gotten a
I would have
stern
been on
talking
some
to.
lists. I would have been on some lists. Anyway, good pick, Lisa.
You're number 4, B.
My number 4 is my last blockbuster movie on my list. It contain. I know in the last film I said that the Mysterio sequence was my favorite action film, but actually the first 5 minutes of this movie is my favorite action sequence of the whole year, and that is John Wick Chapter 3, Parabellum. I like. Well, how can I talk about this movie in any kind of new way? Chad Stahelski as the director. I think nobody shoots action like he does. The film kicks off immediately after the climax of the second movie. John Wick's on the run. He's got seconds, minutes to get to safety before every hitman on the planet turns their crosshairs on him. And there's that opening scene. Well, there's the library battle with that giant basketball player, and he beats the dude to death with a book. Great. There's the horses, and he's using horses to crush skulls. That's great. But then he's in that antique shop.
Oh.
And like the buildup, so he gets to the antique shop and he deconstructs a gun and reconstructs a gun so he can fire one bullet the first round to the first guy who walks in that door. And that's great. And then that kicks off an amazing hand-to-hand combat sequence that escalates into knives and axes being thrown like a snowball fight. Yeah. And that scene is astonishingly rad. Yeah. And it might be so rad that nothing else in the film lives up to it, in my opinion. I really like the Halle Berry dog sequence, of course. It's a lot of fun. But that snowball fight with knives and axes and whatnot, that's a chef's kiss. And, they really go crazy with the mythology in Chapter 3, with the Adjudicator and the Elder and, Angelica Houston's character. And we get a little peek into the lifestyle of what baby John Wick was like. And I think all that's pretty interesting. Again, some of it seems wackier and weirder than I'm willing to go, maybe. At the same time, when this movie ends, I go, I better get a John Wick Chapter 4. And, Lawrence Fishburne's awesome in it. Ian McShane's great. Lance Reddick finally gets to kick some ass in Chapter 3, and I really appreciated that. Yeah. And that Continental shootout where all the high table goons come in and they're wearing body armor and John Wick's, just bouncing bullets off their skulls that's some good stuff.
Yeah, and I love Mark Dacascos, like being kind of fanboying out over John Wick, but also is chasing him and being the antagonist to his character as well.
Their final fight is great, and the fight that leads into their final fight with the Raid guys is great. I like. This was a movie where when it got done, I was like, well, I can't wait to watch that again.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, a lot of energy in those John Wick movies, and I'm all for it. The Keanu Sans continues.
Yes, it does.
Bill and Ted 3, bring it.
Yeah, Matrix 4.
Oh wow! All right, shit. Then speaking of number 4, my number 4. I'm just right on everyone's coattails tonight. My number 5, I was right on Brad. My number 4, I'm right on yours, Brian. I'm also gonna go with The Farewell. I found that film to be, like you said, extremely interesting. That cultural insight, the moral quandary there, like what I do, do I believe in what they're doing. And but the performances and the actor who plays her Nana, we said it on the when we reviewed the film. Like she doesn't seem like an actor. She just seems like a Nana,
like a real person.
They just put the camera on, and the way that movie ended was on. I needed that. Like I didn't know I needed that until I saw it, and I was like, man, I'm glad that turned out to be that way. But
no more doctors for me.
You gotta go to the doctor.
I will take all of your diagnoses. It's not like I'm not curious what's going on in
done
there.
with doctors.
But as Lisa talked about when we reviewed the film, Awkwafina is revelatory in her performance. I only know her from like her viral stuff, and she was in the Ocean's 8 movie.
Yeah,
I think that was like the only thing I've seen her in, because I didn't see Crazy Rich Asians.
Oh, you didn't see it.
But she is great. In addition to the Nana character, Awkwafina's performance also feels very natural, very much grounded in a reality and an honestness, and so that was something that also helped me connect to the character as well. So if you haven't seen the film, I highly recommend checking out. I don't know that if it's still playing in the theaters, but if and when it becomes available on home video and or VOD, please do yourself a favor and check it out. If not to see what another culture's perspective is on life and sickness and death, but to see just a good film and good actors portraying some very good characters, telling an honest story. That's my number 4. Brian, your number 3.
So my number 3 is one that's
Hobbs
already.
and Shaw.
Oh my God, dude!
I'm gonna get it right.
No, it's one Lisa already brought up earlier. It is Toy Story 4. So not going to speak too much on this. Pretty much everything that Lisa said about this film. This is a movie that, just like with the two of you guys, it definitely spoke to me and my point in my life right now. I think it's a movie that definitely speaks on purpose and what our purpose is.
That our purpose is mutable. Like our purpose is going to change.
Yeah, they're all there. It's constantly going to change. I think that's something Woody is discovering is how his purpose and his need is changing. Not just his need, not just the purpose of like the kids' use for him, but his own purpose for his life and what he can offer to not just one child but to many children, and also rejection. We see that with the villain.
Yeah.
God, what was
Christina
her name?
Hendricks.
Yeah, Christina Hendricks.
Is that who that was?
Yeah.
Gabby. That was her name. Gabby. Who starts out as the villain, the antagonist of the piece, but you become really sympathetic towards the character towards the end of the film, and how she goes through this whole thing to try to get, spoilers, to try to get Woody's voice box, so that she can become, so she can be owned by one child, and then how that child rejects her. And I don't know, I like how all this speaks, and then the whole thing with the inner voice. And even though Buzz Lightyear doesn't have a lot to do in this film, I think the last moment that he has with Woody, when he brings back that whole thing about listen to your inner voice, brought me to tears. I mean, I thought this movie, like you guys already said, it spoke to me as a 41-year-old man about my place and where I'm at in my life right now. And I think it's probably speaks more to us than it actually may speak to children. But again, that's what Pixar does best. And
did the ventriloquist dummy bring everyone else to tears like me?
Tears of
terror?
terror.
Yeah. Like nightmare tears?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's my number 3, Toy Story 4.
Kids don't know what the word gab means anymore. Like the name Gabby, because I'm a music teacher, so you try to make words out of the notes on the staff, so you only have so many letters to work with. Yeah. So a lot of times the word will be gab, and they're like, "What?" And I'm like, gab.
Like the
It's
gift
like
of
chit
gab?
chat.
Yeah.
They call that the TikTok now.
What?
They call it the TikTok.
Oh, all right. Wife Dork, you're
Yes.
number 3.
My number 3. What?
I'm so old.
My number 3 is Spider-Man: Far From Home. It was Darren and Brad's number 5. I was super charmed by it. I thought that it took the characters to a new place. I think that you guys spoke really wonderfully of it. I don't think I have anything to add.
Lisa
I also like that movie.
I showed Lisa the video of Kevin Feige and Tom Holland talking about how it's been a great, 5 movies and blah, blah, blah. And Lisa's just like, I can't deal with this right now.
I know.
Yeah.
I can't process.
But Brian's probably right,
Like, to me, it's just like,
so.
why are
I
they
hope so.
fighting over percentages of infinite money? Like,
I get it.
It's so much money.
Yeah, I get it. These are corporations, and Sony owns it. It's their character that they own. At least the movie rights.
They own the leasing. Yeah,
the movie rights. So technically, they can take this character back, and but I'm just
but then
thinking
they never
about it.
should have given it away in the first place.
Yeah, and it's just lose for us as fans. I think it's just going to hurt the narrative arc of
They
these
don't
characters.
care about that.
Well,
shit.
to me, I don't want to get all hot and bothered about it until I see the piece of garbage that they make.
Damn.
Because they have made Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which is
Perfect.
my favorite
Yeah.
superhero comic book movie.
Yeah.
Like, it's a masterpiece. They also made Venom. Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, I know.
And Venom is a
Your
turd
second
piece.
favorite? Oh,
Yes.
alright.
It
It's a turd-
rolls
it's a turd in the
downhill.
wind.
Yeah.
The turd
It's got
in the wind.
no legs and no arms, so it's a turd and it's rolling downhill. All right.
Yeah.
It's a turdster piece.
Yeah.
And I don't like Tom Hardy's interpretation of that character at all. And that world does not jive at all with Far From Home and Homecoming.
Not at all.
But bring on some great writers, bring on the same awesome cast. It could still be a great movie that can't talk about the Avengers or Tony Stark or any of that stuff.
And I'm rooting for Venom too. I'm always.
I love
rooting
Andy
for,
Serkis.
I know. I'm rooting for Andy Serkis. We've met him many a time.
He's
our
a bud.
friend.
He's a friend. So I'm rooting for him as a director. And I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Morbius is coming out next summer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That was
I love Morbius the Living Vampire. He's a great, fun character.
We'll see how the movie does.
That was my number 3.
All right, Brad, you're number 3.
Oh, my number 3 is a Netflix original film.
Sextuplets?
No. It's I Am Mother from director Grant Spatore.
Did you see that yet, Brian?
Not yet.
It is, well, here's like the IMDb rundown, because this is another one that's very difficult to talk about without going into spoilers. In the wake of humanity's extinction, a teenage girl is raised by a robot designed to repopulate the Earth, but their unique bond is threatened when an interloper arrives. The robot is an amazing robot, a practical robot created by Weta. It's beautiful, and the film opens with her construction and the how that robot is used to pull these embryos out of these freezers, and that first embryo is the child that the robot mother will be raising. The voice of the robot mother is Rose Byrne. The child, well, there's multiple children playing the same character, but the teenage daughter is played by Clara Rugard, and the interloper is played by Hilary Swank.
In addition to that robot, I love the entire aesthetic.
Yeah,
of that
me
film.
too. Me too.
Really good.
It's got like this not antiseptic. What's the word I'm looking for? Antiseptic vibe to
Very
it.
clean, yeah.
Hospital
Yeah.
look. But then there are little
Sterilized. Yeah.
There are little dirty corners that show up here and there. And to me, like that performance of Clara with the mother robot, so strong and compelling.
Yep.
And when Hilary Swank comes in and disrupts everything, there's a real tension. And at times, you're like, well, whose side am I on in this scene? Am I on the daughter's side? Am I on the robot's side? Or am I on the interloper's side?
Yeah.
And throughout that film, I found myself shifting.
Yep.
And yeah, it's a really exciting and interesting movie that got no conversation online. Got put on Netflix. There was a few reviews out of the weekend, some conversation, but it kind of just faded from existence. So if you have the Netflix streaming service, you really should do yourself a favor. And you like science fiction and you like post-apocalyptic stories, press play on I Am Mother.
Okay. Check that one out.
All right. Great pick. My number 3 is John Wick Chapter 3.
Yeah. Get your
I-
own ideas, Darren.
I can't. I don't. I can't.
The pickings are slim.
They are very.
They really
They are very. So basically everything that you said, Brad. But except, for me, I've gone back to see the movie. I've seen it twice in theaters now, and I've been
Same.
wanting to rewatch it. That first 10, 15, 20 minutes of that film is amazing. You are not wrong there. But again, and as I've said on the podcast before, I've returned to the film specifically for the Morocco.
Yeah. Well, it's a
action
great scene.
sequence.
It's a great scene.
Just to see, not only because of the setup of that action sequence and how it's pulled off, but more specifically because, and I've said this every time I've talked about the film, Halle Berry. Just to see her stand side by side and going toe to toe with Keanu Reeves as far as his dedication to performing these stunts and this action. You can tell like she has committed herself 100%, and she put in such tremendous work prior to shooting the film, and it pays off exponentially. Like she is in every frame of her action sequences, and it shows. And it's so exhilarating to see someone other than a male on screen, like kicking so much ass, but in such a believable fashion. And Chad Stahelski, as you mentioned, Brad, I also agree that just the way that they set up these shootouts and these action sequences, like the modern shootout to me has, back in the 90s when John Woo was in the early 80s and then the late 80s and then early 90s when John Woo was such a huge driving force cinematically in action films, and it was all of his Hong Kong stuff. And that's what got me into filmmaking is Hard Boiled. And at that time, there was no one who would set up and shoot an action sequence, a shootout, like John Woo. And so it's so much so that there was a large chunk of time, there was a span of a few years where every action film at one point or another had someone double fisting weapons, diving sideways or in slow motion, trying to emulate how John Woo would shoot an action sequence. So he was very distinguishable in the way that he did that. And so we're so far removed from that now that everything has just become cut and paste and very sterile until, Chad Stahelski and what's the other guy? His partner.
David Leitch.
David Leitch. They come with their stunt coordinator background, and they kind of reinvigorate the shootout, the modern shootout. And John Wick and its subsequent sequels are like the epitome and the pinnacle now, our modern day apex of how to properly shoot a very inventive and kinetic and fast moving shootout, and not because of editing, not because of fast moving cuts, but just the ingenuity of the setup of it and the performance of it. So I don't know, like it just came out on last Friday on like the digital version. But the disc comes out on September 10th, and I'm
all over it.
I'm trying to hold off on buying it, but I want to watch it again so bad. I might just buy the digital copy. But it's and then like you said, like the world building and the expanding on it. Yes, it's getting more ridiculous, but I kind of dig that because again, that's something new. You know, we don't have, there aren't any. Show me another action movie like the John Wick franchise. And I don't just mean with the action, but I mean in how it starts off small and it just keeps expanding and expanding.
With the weird world that hinted at in the first film and is now full blown.
Yep, and the uniqueness of that world. Like show me another action franchise that is what John Wick is. And so because it is its own thing and it's unique and it's fresh, I welcome that, and I'm intrigued and drawn to it. And so I'm looking forward to every installment in that. So hopefully we get that, and hopefully we get another shot at seeing Halle Berry on the screen. I hope Sophia is her name. I hope her character returns. Yeah. Brian, you're number 2. 2 names. 1 Hobbs and 1 Shaw.
From one of the directors of John Wick 1.
Yeah. You're close. It's one name.
Hobbs.
Godzilla.
Oh, I'll take that. I'll take that.
Figure I'd get to it before you did.
All right.
No, Godzilla, King of the Monsters, man. I've talked about this movie. I feel like I have to defend this movie.
What? No, don't.
I know.
I will stand right there and champion it with you.
I
B.
know.
They got to get through us.
Yeah. But no, I thoroughly enjoyed this movie a lot when it came out at the end of May. I know a lot of people talk about, the human characters and there's no real story there. And, I mean, and maybe that may be true for some people. Maybe they don't feel that the human character element is strong, or they just want to see the monsters. And if that's the case, I think this movie delivers on that front as well with a lot of the monster action, especially if you're comparing it to the last 2014 Godzilla film, which I think is still a good film. I'm not high on that one, but it does still deliver on some of those aspects.
You
but
prefer King of the Monsters to the 2014 one?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Most definitely. Brad is shaking.
He's drunk right now.
But no, I mean, again, going back to just what we talked about before the movie even came out with the trailers, I talked about how majestic the filmmakers, which is Michael Dougherty, who directed this, how he's treating these monsters, and you see it displayed in the actual film as well, even with the opening sequence of Mothra. Just the way they use the lighting and everything with these monsters, I think is great. The action sequences with Rodan, I think some of these sequences, the way they're constructed and how, Rodan, when he goes into his spin and how he, hits the jets and, it's amazing. Like when the guy ejects right into his mouth and
Whoops.
all that stuff. And then how it, like when he flies over a city, it feels like an atomic blast. Like, all these little details that they put in and how it affects the world around them, I thought was just really, really innovative in the way they were able to display a lot of that stuff. The music, I thought the way they were to incorporate a lot of the themes from some of the older films, and I'm not like the biggest, Godzilla fan. I defer to Darren, but I can only imagine somebody who's a diehard fan of this franchise going into this movie and to see a lot of those different, references, whether it be musical cues or anything else that kind of pays homage to some of the older films, how that could really kind of get people excited, who love this franchise. And you could see that the filmmakers really are paying a lot of attention and showing love to that as well. I don't know, man. I really, really like this movie a lot. And, it may not be high on other people's lists, but I dug it. By the time this comes out, it will already be out on Blu-ray.
And I've watched it 13 times.
And I would have had it too, and I would have rewatched it. And maybe on rewatch, I may not be as high. I don't know. Maybe I'll like it as much or even more. But
I'm looking forward to rewatching it.
Yeah, but
Godzilla's Godzilla.
Yeah.
Even Matthew Broderick's Godzilla. I watched that a couple times.
Oh.
Well, there goes Darren under that table.
But
this is better than Matthew Broderick's Godzilla.
Yeah,
by a lot.
But I don't know. Like, I dug the human aspect of this movie. I mean, even somebody like Ken Watanabe, Dr. Ishiro Serizawa, his last moment before he, spoiler alert, sacrifices himself to bring Godzilla back to life, so to speak, I thought was really, really touching. And again, the music that plays with that, I dug this film a lot. I really did.
All right, Wife Dork, your
Yes.
number 2.
My number 2 is a film that has already been spoken very highly of at this very podcast. It was Brian's number 4. It was Darren's number 3. It's my number 2, and it's The Farewell.
Yay.
I have been living with this story for a long time. I was a fan of the original This American Life piece that was entitled What You Don't Know. And it was essentially everything that was in the film. And so what I want to speak to was the craftsmanship of Lulu Wang, who composed the script. And it is impeccable. It's absolutely beautiful. I love the symbolism of the bird that comes to beautiful fruition at the end of the film. Also, the cinematographer, Ana Franqueza Solano. What a powerful team between those two, because it's a visually stunning movie. And since this movie has already been talked about, I want to talk about another film that I have not seen yet, but is based on another This American Life piece that has been haunting me since I've heard it. So the original This American Life piece comes from a piece by Chris Higgins, and it's called I've Fallen in Love and I Can't Get Up. And it's about this guy named Matt Frerking, and he has a form of narcolepsy, which is narcolepsy with cataplexy. And what it is he will become, you know how like when you're asleep, you can't move? Like some people have that thing where they wake up and they can't move their body. Sleep paralysis. Okay. Well, he has a kind of narcolepsy where the cataplexy will just kind of take over. But what makes it interesting is the trigger, because it's an emotional trigger, and the emotional trigger, for the most part, is joy. So whenever he feels joy, he like starts to become paralyzed. He's literally paralyzed with joy. He's awake. He can hear. He can see, but he can't move. This is a true story. And so it's gotten to the point. What a nightmare. Yeah. It's gotten to the point where he can't hold his wife's hand. He has children, and one of his children was getting married, and the way they did the family photos was they posed the family around him because he was paralyzed with joy for his son. Wow. So it's Jesus. But what I know, it's dark.
And this is being made into a movie?
It has been made into a movie, and the movie is called Ode to Joy. It's starring Martin Freeman and Anna Baccarin. I'm trying to find. I have just way too many. Yeah. So here it is. So I
think our friend Ariel has seen this already.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I wonder how it is. It's being directed by Jason Weiner. I don't know who that is. But yeah, I love this thing with like movies being made out of This American Life stories. So the Martin Freeman version, it's fictionalized.
Sure.
But it's inspired by that story. Ira Glass from This American Life is one of the producers. So as far as I know, this is the third movie that's come out of This American Life story, because there's Sleepwalk with Me.
Yeah.
From Mike Birbiglia.
The Farewell, and then this.
And now this. So I think that's cool.
All right.
That was my number 2.
Brad, your number 2.
My number 2 is a movie I'm the most surprised is on my list.
Hobbs and Shaw.
It's not Hobbs and Shaw.
What the fuck?
It's not Hobbs and Shaw. Darren, unless you make it your number 2 or 1, I don't think Hobbs and Shaw is coming up. You should brace yourself.
I got you, Dwayne and Jason.
Yeah. Oh boy. No, my number 2 is a film that Lisa saw first and said, Brad, you have to see this movie. And I was like, Lisa, I'm not going to like this movie. Brad, you have to see this movie. So I said, all right, fine, I'll go see it. And it's Rocket Man, the Elton John musical.
Yeah.
Directed by Dexter Fletcher, who came in and did the reshoots and brought Bohemian Rhapsody to completion, a film I hated with a burning passion.
I second that emotion.
Yeah.
It's hard to believe that movie is the same guy. That guy directed
it blows my mind.
Yeah.
And I just really appreciate, like, I don't know anything about Elton John. I really don't. I know, the Wikipedia basics, and actually probably not even that much. I'm sure there's a hell of a lot more information about Elton John on Wikipedia. I knew the greatest albums basics of Elton John. And like every song that I hear in the movie, I've recognized. And, what Lisa talked about this on her Weekend Dork, or maybe it was a review cast, I can't remember. But the surprise and the joy of seeing his music used to tell his story and tell other people's stories. That's what a musical does. Like, it fully embraces the musical concept. Lisa's like chowing down on her food over there.
I'm
Yeah.
so sorry.
She's
that-
starving.
I
Slurp.
know.
That's
She's
my
starving. It's
favorite.
late
There's a
at
lot of
night. It's late at
recording.
night. I don't mind you eating. I just want the listeners to know
Do you
what
know
the,
why I'm
the
clanking
clanking
forks?
is. Yeah, yeah.
I've been eating rice like 4 kernels at a
I
time.
know. I've been watching every kernel. But like, it is a full-blown musical. It's like West Side Story kind of musical. And it has this framing device where Elton is in an AA-like scenario, telling his tale, and the film takes off, and his music is used to tell his tale. And I've seen so many musical biopics, and I'm so freaking sick of musical biopics because the stories of Ray Charles, the stories of Johnny Cash, the stories of Freddie Mercury, they're all the same. They're all the same story. And if they had told Elton John's story in that fashion, in that very, traditional narrative musical biopic fashion, Rocket Man also would have been boring. But because it embraced the fantasy of the music, it came alive as a cinematic experience. It's so cinematic. And like, whether it's a real depiction of Elton John's life or not, I don't care. It's a damn good time at the movies.
Another thing that made that film so shocking was how awful the trailer was.
Yeah.
It just
Yeah.
had such a garbage trailer. It was so unfair because that movie is amazing.
And Taron Egerton is awesome.
Yep.
So many Oscars for that guy.
He can sing.
He can
He
sing.
can sing, he can
and
dance.
act.
He's a
super
chameleon.
handsome.
Like, he doesn't, like, you're talking about Zac Efron not looking like Ted Bundy. Taron Egerton does not look like Elton John. But there are shots in that movie where I thought, was that face replaced? Like, what?
Yeah.
What's going on there? Really?
He disappeared into the role.
Yeah. So, wow, who knew? Rocket Man, number 2.
All right, man. Since no one else at this goddamn table feels that everyone thinks they're too good to put Hobbs and Shaw on their top 5 of the summer, I, Darren Smith, the Disco Dork,
I'll put Men in Black.
also don't have that shit on my list because today I saw the Peanut Butter Falcon, and that movie is amazing.
Yay.
Brian and I went to see that to hear our thoughts on it, to hear me go into specific detail about it. If you have not already checked out the Weekend Dork episode, please do so. I would just say Shia LaBeouf is amazing in the film. Zach, I don't want to mispronounce his last name. Look that up for me. But the gentleman who plays Zach, his first name is Zach. Gottsigan. He is amazing in the film, and also Dakota Johnson is in the film as well. Bruce Dern is in the film, and he's great in it. Brad, you'll love his role in it. He's so good. He's so funny.
Bruce Dern's having a great year.
He is.
Yeah.
He's not in it a lot. He's
in the beginning.
But he's in the beginning.
Yeah.
But he's so good in that film. Just the feel good movie of the summer. If you go watch to some movies in the theater this summer and you don't feel like you're upbeat on a high note when you come out of the theaters, or if the fact that the summer's almost over has gotten you down, please do yourself a favor and go check out Peanut Butter Falcon. It will make you feel amazing. Brian, you're number 1.
Well, just want to keep that ball rolling, man.
Into the Hobbs and Shaw train.
No.
Oh.
Into the Peanut Butter Falcon.
Yeah, Peanut Butter Falcon.
Yeah, that's
no,
what.
I almost made the worst joke.
Well, you did it.
Whoops.
So just let Brian continue.
Okay, good.
So that's my number 1. Everything that you just said, it's a feel good time. It's very
So good.
heartwarming. It's a touching film about friendship, about family.
Family.
Like Hobbs and Shaw.
And, there you go. There's your Hobbs and Shaw, D. There you go. You happy now?
Yeah.
I don't got friends. Got family.
But honestly, like, this movie really touches on the idea of friends or relationships that you have with people as family, probably more so than any of those Fast and Furious films, even though I love those movies. But again, being a more character-driven indie film that really follows these characters, and that character of Zach, who is searching not just, to be this wrestler, but searching for his own family. Once he has the idea of what that he can create and make his own family, and that journey that he goes on with that. And then on the flip side of that, Shia LaBeouf's character, and then his journey that he goes on and reconnecting to people as well, especially when you learn within the context of his own backstory, it's just, I don't, like Darren said, man, this movie just surprised me. It really, really surprised me. I mean, I hope when you guys see it that, you pull the same things from that. I mean, I don't know, but for me personally, it's one of the best movies I've seen this year. It's really that good. And like you said, Shia LaBeouf, man, that dude is a phenomenal actor. Phenomenal.
Yep, straight up.
Well, hopefully by the time our listeners have heard this episode, Lisa and I have seen the movie.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
And then we'll have to redo our Fistful of Summer, maybe.
Yay. All right. In the interim, before you have to redo it, Lisa.
Yes.
Your number one film of the summer of 2019. Does it happen to star Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Jason Statham?
I mean, I don't think that if he was in the film, he'd take away from it. He's only additive. He only makes things that he is in better. He is one that elevates, but he is not in Rocket Man, which is my number one.
Okay. Sorry to steal your thunder, Lisa. I got to talk about it first.
I know, it's so unfair. The whole structure of this cast.
You should just sing your review right now.
I will not.
God damn it.
But oh, that was beautiful. I do not want the listener to think that was me. That was Brad.
That was you.
That was not me.
That was you.
Man, I turned my head and I thought that was Darren, actually.
What the fuck?
I did sound a little like Darren. I'll give you that. But all of the things Brad said, because those were originally my opinions, which is why I made him see the movie. But I feel like when I talk about modern musicals, I tend to gripe about, like, this is not really what a musical is. What a musical should be is this. I have a certain...
i.e. blinded by the light.
Yeah, going back to my weekend Dork, I'm like, why aren't there numbers? There should be numbers. Yeah. Or, I don't know.
You felt that way about the Bradley Cooper, Lady Gaga. You wanted that to be a full-on musical.
Star is Born.
Yeah, Star is Born. Yeah. That other one, that Moonlight beat at the Oscars.
La La Land.
La La Land. There wasn't enough singing. I have in my brain like this platonic ideal of what a musical really is and really should be. And it's indescribable. Like, it's hard to... Like, I know it when I don't see it. And
it's like my script for Howard the Duck.
Right. But Rocket Man is the perfect musical film. And the fact that they had that Dexter Fletcher and his team had the guts to do it. Because what I feel like when movies just miss the mark on going all the way musical, to me, I see that as like clearly they wimped out. They're afraid of what the modern viewer wants a musical to be. And I'm disappointed that not more people saw this film. Because I went into it having seen that god-awful trailer. My expectation was low. I just wanted an opportunity to have a low-key hang with my gal friends. And the fact that I just loved that movie. And I was ready to see it again immediately. And I talked about on my Weekend Dork, like, Blinded by the Light, I'm not like a huge Bruce Springsteen fan. Yeah. I'm not a huge Elton John fan either. Like, to me, growing up, like, he wasn't like this crazy rock and roll guy. I was like, that guy, he is Disney. He's a Disney guy. He's Circle of Life. He is, just an old dude. Yeah. But I know all of his songs. I know all of the words. And I think that the way that, as Brad said, the music was translated into each of the characters, and all of the characters got to sing pieces of the songs, and those pieces of their songs revealed their inner story. Like, I just thought it was brilliant. It's just a perfect musical. I'm probably going to be talking about it at the end of the year. I'm totally in the bag for this movie.
All right.
And Taron Egerton, if you're listening.
Yeah. All right, B.
All right, let's get into the haka. Let's do this.
All right.
I'm talking about Hobbs and Nah.
Oh man, Ryan Reynolds is great in it.
Yeah.
He stabbed the guy with a brick.
No. My number one is a film that was on all of your lists already.
Yay.
It's The Farewell.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, this movie, what more can I say that you guys haven't already talked about? It really profoundly moved me. I was when you see the trailer and you hear the plight of Awkwafina's character Billy, you're on her side. Like yeah, of course you tell grandma. We can't lie to grandma. Grandma's got to know that things are not looking well. Yeah. And as her journey goes, and she goes to China and she experiences her family's perspective on this situation by putting up this fake wedding so that everyone can say their goodbyes to grandma who is fading from this world, yet she doesn't know it. Your idea of what is right, morally right, alters. And suddenly you realize, like to Lisa's point, you didn't even know you were questioning these things or you even wanted to challenge some of these cultural ideas. And I found that whole thought experiment of The Farewell deeply engaging beyond the emotional journey that was happening with all of these characters who were all performed exceptionally. Awkwafina, never been better. She's a super charismatic actress. I'd watch her in anything. But she does more than her persona in this film. I love her dad, played by Sai Ma. I think he's great. Diana Lynn is her mom. I think she's amazing. Nai Nai is played by Xu Zhenzhao.
Yeah.
All the Oscars.
Yeah.
Give her all the Oscars.
She doesn't even have a picture on IMDb.
No.
She's one of the great ghosts.
Yeah, like it's the Farewell will certainly be in discussion when we talk about our dorkies.
Oh, yeah.
It'll be right there hanging out with Hellboy 2019.
It's a hell of a double feature, man.
There's connective tissue, guys.
All right. My number one film of the summer of 2019 is obvious because I got that motherfucker tatted on my left arm. It's Godzilla King of the Monsters. I've gushed about this film ad nauseum on the podcast, so we'll not take up too much time doing it again. It is fairly obvious, if you know me, why I love this film. These is by far, I know it might be blasphemous to some other hardcore Godzilla fans, but at the end of the day, my personal take on it is that this film has my favorite interpretations of these classic Toho characters. I do, and will always love me some man in suit. I love the idea of a grown man putting on a giant rubber / latex / whatever else material they use to craft these really beautiful, ingenious designs of these giant kaiju stomping around a handmade miniature city for fun, not for fun as their job to entertain us. I will always love the idea of that. My 3 to 10-year-old self loves, I used to put myself in those shoes and wish I could be the guy who could stomp around and destroy cities and stuff like that. So I will always have a place in my heart for that. But as I've grown older, as I've grown with cinema, and as cinema has grown in filming techniques and the art techniques, and have grown, just as much as I love the work and the ingenuity that goes into, and an artist puts into hand-drawn 2D cell animation, like I was commenting to Lisa early, with the advent of technology and new tools and new tool sets made available for artists to transfer their ideas into a new format, like with Pixar, and how they're able to take the same thing, idea that they have in their head, like a 2D artist, and use a different tool instead of a pencil. It's a pixel to craft these beautiful images. I feel the same way as far as these artists, instead of using their physical bodies to translate expressiveness, they use their imagination and a computer to make 3 of Ghidorah's heads move, to make Godzilla snarl and growl, to make these titans clash, and to make me feel the same sense of wonder when I look at these imaginary fictional characters. And so this is my favorite Godzilla film. This is my favorite Godzilla movie. I love the design. I love the aesthetic. I love the way Michael Dougherty shot the film. I love the cinematography. Like Brian always comments, I love the respect and majesty that he chooses to show, the light in which he chooses to show these giant creatures in. And I love the world building up to the MonsterVerse. Now with the, box office of King of the Monsters being what it is, if, how successful that MonsterVerse will be, if or when we get that, I don't know. But my hope is, based on everything that they've put into the film and in the closing credits, like all the little Easter eggs and the potentiality of what could be, I hope to someday see that. But if not,
we still got Godzilla versus Kong.
We still have that. But even outside of that, regardless of what that film ends up being, my favorite Godzilla movie still exists, and I still own it. And so that I can't complain. So yeah. That's our top 5, our Fistful.
So before we started to record, I sent out a little message to ItModcast Facebook page and Still Awesome to see if anybody wanted to share their favorite films of the summer.
Scan the ones and tell me who has Hobbs and Shaw on it. I'll read that one first.
I hate to break the news to you, but not a single person picked Hobbs and Shaw.
What?
So yes, Rick Humphreys.
All right, shout out to Rick.
He's only seen 5 movies this summer.
Damn.
But of those 5, he's got to say Godzilla King of the Monsters was the best.
All right, my man.
Yeah.
He's comparing those to Angry Birds 2.
Oh, Jesus.
Angel Has Fallen.
Jesus.
Battle Roar to Victory. And Avengers Endgame. Rick, sorry, that was April. You've only seen 4 movies this summer.
So technically, Godzilla wins by default.
Really?
Several people picked Midsummer. Lori Havermal. I'm mispronouncing your last name, Lori.
Yeah.
I've never said it before, so sorry. Joanna Hicks also picked Midsummer. Faye, she says, I can't believe I'm saying this, but yeah, Midsummer, I loved it.
Lori and Joanna, first of all, thanks for shout out and thank you for contributing and posting and responding.
And then Andrew Schluckbeer also picked Midsummer, but he picked a movie that surprisingly is not on any of our lists.
What is it?
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Also thank you, Faye. I didn't forget you. And thank you, Andrew, as well.
I'm still working out my feelings about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Same.
I need to see it a second time. I still haven't done that. That's my mission, and I'm failing. But yeah, it just didn't land the way I wanted it to. And same with Midsummer.
Same.
Like, I really liked Midsummer, but for whatever reason, it just didn't click. And probably a lot of that has to do with anticipation and my love of Hereditary and my love of Tarantino movies and all that stuff. Andy Geyerson.
Andy.
Oh, yeah. Our hero.
Our hero over at the Alamo Winchester. He picked 4 films. He can't do 1. He doesn't know how rules work. He says, forget your rules.
I'm going to add Hobbs and Shaw to it. Don't worry.
Okay. Well, he picked the Mark Maron movie Sword of Trust. The documentary Maiden. I know he was crying big time during that documentary.
Oh, wow.
I saw him right after that film screened, and it was very misty in there. He picked The Farewell.
Okay.
And then, now he has to add Firecrackers, which they just screened at the Alamo Winchester.
And he also has to add Hobbs and Shaw.
And Hobbs and Shaw.
All righty. Thanks, Andy.
And then finally,
our favorite listener.
The Stitch dork herself,
Yay.
Shara Valentine,
Hey, girl.
said top 3 because I can't narrow it down.
You don't have to. You're our favorite.
Oh, Darren. We have the Hobbs and Shaw.
Yeah.
Shara has picked Hobbs and Shaw as one of her top 3, along with Spider-Man Far From Home and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
That's my girl.
She says, if you twist my arm to pick just one, I think Hobbs and Shaw was the most fun I've had at a theater in ages. And here's the thing. Darren may not have liked Hobbs and Shaw. Brian, Lisa, and I liked Hobbs and Shaw.
We did.
Did we love it? No. Was it way too long? For sure.
Yeah.
Do we want to be cradled in the arms of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson?
Always.
Definitely.
Yes. Do we want to open mouth kiss Jason Statham?
Yes.
Yes. What? We do.
Yes. I'll cup
With
stuff.
tongues.
I'll cup stuff for Statham. Put that on a T-shirt. I'll cup stuff for Statham.
All right.
Stitch dork. That would be a great Stitch design.
Good
By
idea.
the way, Stitch Dork has an Etsy account right
Yep.
now.
Yeah.
Shara Valentine. Go seek her out. She's done 2 pieces of art for us. She did the tiny Sam Jackson from 1408 hanging in the refrigerator.
Yep.
And it says, get the Banff out of my fridge. That's a reference to a classic episode and a classic movie. And she also did the Shining, the Overlook Hotel floor
Carpet, yeah.
as a Stitch piece of art as
And
well.
It's amazing.
And it's
So,
awesome.
Go to Etsy.com, literally search Stitch Dork.
Yeah.
She's right there.
So that's super cool. And, you know, her
If
prices
you're a
are
Hanson
absurd.
fan, she's got shit for you.
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, Shara is a huge Hanson fan, like all of us. And she follows them all over the place. And you should check out her photos because
She
she gets
is
great
the
photos.
embodiment of Toy Story 4. She is following
Yeah.
her bliss.
She really is.
She is finding her purpose, and it is Hanson.
Yeah.
So thanks to everybody who posted on the It Madcast Madcast. Thanks to everyone who posted on the It Modcast Facebook page
Yes.
as well as our Still Awesome page.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's super cool.
absolutely.
I love you.
Yeah, I want to shout out a couple of TV shows because honestly, this summer because
I thought
of
you were going to put a
I
TV
know,
show on.
I
here.
know. I said, you know what? I'm gonna
Blue
stick
Assassins?
it. I'm gonna stick it to. No,
All right. Are you
I'm
going
gonna
to stick to it in the Dorkies?
Probably not.
Yeah.
Yeah. I as much as I would love to, but there's been some great television. So The Boys, I've talked about.
Yeah.
Free Meek, which is a docuseries on Amazon. Amazon's killing it, and of
Good.
course, When They See Us. Ava DuVernay's miniseries on Netflix is still the best thing that I have seen all year long.
When They See Us would definitely be in my top 5 if I counted it as a single movie.
Yeah, so definitely want to shout those out. All those were released this summer, so they're all still available. Check those out.
So you're shouting out movies? I'm going to shout out comics.
Yeah.
You got to be reading Jonathan Hickman's run on Powers of 10 and House of X.
Shit is going
It's
sideways.
getting really fucking crazy. Now.
It's-
I'm quit. I quit.
It's nuts. I'm loving it. Loving it.
What life are we living?
Not
We
the
don't
ninth,
even know.
Not the ninth life. Not the ninth life, everyone.
Maybe it's the 6th.
I think the 6th. Well, I have a theory and an idea.
And listeners, you
I
don't know
have
what
a
that
theory.
means.
It
You
could
don't know
be
what they're talking
bunnies.
about. You don't know what that means. They don't even know what that shit means.
Yeah,
We don't.
so
I definitely
excited.
don't
There's
know.
diagrams and stuff. I'm confused.
Shit's getting crazy.
I know exactly what's happening.
Do you, Brad?
Yeah.
We gotta
I've been
talk.
decoding. I downloaded. They have like a mutant computer language, and I have it on my phone so I can translate as I
You
read.
need it. See what type of shit you need to read a comic book nowadays?
It's so good.
It's amazing. All right, that's going to do it for us. Thank you all for listening. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Please be safe. Go watch some more movies. And until next time.